We're back here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter here with Ray Fiitpaldo, your Steelers writers here for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette as we continue our 53-man roster projection. This segment is brought to you by Goldberg, Persky, and White. If you were diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer, call your local attorneys at Goldberg, Persky, and White today. For over 40 years, their firm has represented thousands of lung cancer and mesothelioma victims. Call 1-800-COMPLEX or visit gpwlaw.com for a free consultation. Ray, let's move right to the defense. We'll start in reverse here. We'll start with the upfront guys compared to what we did in the last segment. And let's get some of the obvious ones out of the way. Of course, Cam Heyward, though technically still in a hold-in. We know he's returned to practice for the Steelers. Derrick Harmon, maybe he gets put on injury reserve. That hasn't been officially confirmed yet, but it sounds like the Steelers don't want to, from what our colleague Jerry Dulac's reporting. We'll also throw in Keeanu Benton as the other obvious starter on this defensive line. So let's get those three out of the way. I wrote about this in my film study that came out this morning. Yahya Black has been a standout through camp, and then he put an exclamation point in his work with that preseason game, getting back-to-back sacks. He told us Saturday in the Steelers locker room, he was like, that's the first time in his life he's had a multi-sack game because he had five sacks in his time in Iowa. I'm putting Yahya Black as a lock for the roster and maybe even the first guy off the bench for this defensive line.
Yeah, and I think if somebody was injured, and you got some situations, I think Heyward's going to come back. Benton is actually injured too. Now a little bit, we don't know the severity of that injury, and of course Harmon. So if one of those guys can't start the season, Chris, would you be surprised if Yahya Black is in the starting lineup week one against the New York Jets? I would not be surprised at all. Now listen, the Steelers could go, with a veteran there. We're not sure who they're going to keep. We'll get to that in a minute. But you got guys like Equale, who's a vet. Logan Lee, Isaiahh Loudermilk, another vet who would be in that mix. But listen, Yahya Black has played better than all of them. So why wouldn't you give him extended playing time? If not, put him in there as a starter, put him in there with extended playing time early in the season until Harmon can get back to where he was.
I agree with you there. So let's say our first four defensive linemen, Heyward, Harmon, Benton, Black. Yeah. How many more do they keep, and who do they keep? I think Equale is a lock just because of his veteran status. Yeah. But after that, I do get a little sketchy with Loudermilk and Lee.
Yeah, you're right. Equale is a lock. I think Lee probably has a little bit of an edge over Loudermilk just because he's younger. And Loudermilk, unfortunately, you kind of know who he is at this point of his career, right?
Yeah.
He's a guy who can go in there and represent you well in the run game. He's not going to give you anything in terms of a pass rusher. We think Lee, I think the coaches think Lee probably has a little bit more potential in there, and I think they probably are going to want to run him out there and give him that opportunity. The one thing that's positive for Loudermilk is with Harmon injured, maybe you do keep a seventh, at least for early in the season, and that will give Loudermilk a chance to at least make the initial 53-man roster. And with his veteran status, Chris, that is huge in terms of him getting paid this year. So if he's on the roster early in the season, he's gonna get paid like he usually would. And unfortunate for Derrick Harmon, but might be fortuitous for a guy like Isaiahh Loudermilk.
So we'll keep both Lee and Loudermilk on this current roster, correct?
Okay, yeah, just because of Harmon's situation. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so now that gives us 31 players. I believe we kept 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 7 defensive linemen, so let's keep that in mind moving forward. Let's go to linebacker, and we'll start with inside linebacker because the tool that we have for the Post-Gazette doesn't really divide those. Inside linebacker, you have your obvious ones. Of course, Patrick Queen is sticking around. Payton Wilson sticking around, and I'd say Cole Holcomb sticks around. All three of those guys looked really good in camp. Do they keep 4 or 5 inside linebackers? Because if they keep 4, I feel like the last one's Malik Harrison. But if they keep 5, then you consider Mark Robinson, Carson Bruener. What say you about how they handle that?
I think they'll probably keep 5. And I think just because of special teams, Robinson has proven to be a good teamer over the years. I think Carson Bruener's been really good on teams too in the preseason games. He always is noticeable on the kickoff team. So I think he's got a shot down the road. I would just be surprised, Chris, if they chose him over Robinson. I think they probably believe he can be. They can get him onto the practice squad, and then with Robinson being in the final year of his deal, I think that's an easy path for Bruener to be the next, linebacker among the special teamers. So that's kind of the way I think it's going to go now, but I do think they will keep 5.
So Mark Robinson will keep him as a 5th linebacker. Let's go to edge rushers here. Outside linebacker, of course, you're keeping T.J. Watt. You're keeping Alex Highsmith. You're keeping Nick Herbig. And I'd say that Jack Sawyer's proven to be, a decent 4th-round pick, so they keep him. Do they keep any more than those 4 edge rushers? Your other guys here would be Echo Leota and Devin Harper. Other guys, actually, he's actually an inside linebacker. But Echo Leota, I got to say, man, I don't think they'll keep him. But he balled out in training camp. Every time I turned around, 53 was making plays. I just don't think they're going to keep a 4th edge rusher.
I don't either. Yeah, I don't either. The only thing that would the way that would happen is if they had to put one of their guys on IR. It looks like Highsmith is getting back to being close to a full participant in practice, so it seems like he's going to be good. Herbig does have an injury, so we'll have to wait and see what's up with Herbig. If that's short term, he probably stays on the roster. But if they have to IR him, then Jack Sawyer is going to have a bigger role than anticipated. And I think Leota would probably get on as number 4, at least early in the season. But we're still waiting for more information on Herbig's injury. He did come back and play in that game. But, we'll see what happens in practice over the next week or so.
Moving along to the cornerback position, another tricky spot to pick right now. Let's get the obvious ones out of the way. Jalen Ramsey sticking around, Joey Porter sticking around, Darius Slay sticking around, and I'd say Brandin Echols, another obvious one. He's been the consistent 4th guy in the cornerback rotation. But after that, not so obvious. Dante Kent was the guy they picked in the 7th round, but he didn't get to practice and play a whole lot with his injury. Cory Trice also missed a lot of time again, but a guy that says he's warming back up and getting close to getting ready. Beanie Bishop, a guy that had 4 picks last year, in a tough spot considering they have Ramsey playing a lot of slot, Echols playing a lot of slot, and both Juan Thornhill and Chuck Clark have rotated to the slot. Ray, I just don't think that there's any space for Beanie to make it. I think that your 5th cornerback here is probably Cory Trice and maybe a James Pierre if you're looking to keep another guy for special teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate for Beanie, but with Echols' ability to play inside and outside, there's just not a lot of reason to have him on the 53-man roster. Now, what complicates this a little bit is, Kent probably is going to go to IR. They didn't really have a chance to look at him. So he's probably not going to be involved in that decision. Does Trice go to IR? Do they just waive him injured and hope nobody else picks him up? I mean, I suppose he's going to go to IR, but I don't know if that's a slam dunk, which leaves us with Beanie. Now, for that reason, Beanie might benefit like in a numbers game, but James Pierre plays special teams, and he could play outside corner too. And there's just you don't really need to go 3 deep at slot corner on a 53-man roster. So I'm going to go Beanie out, James Pierre in, but only because of special teams.
And do you expect Trice to also be on the roster? Do you think he'll be IR'd?
I don't know, Chris. I mean, he's been out longer than Calvin Austin.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been out like almost a full month now. So what team out there, if the Steelers waived him injured, what team out there would claim him? Maybe they would, but he's a 7th-round pick who's been off injured. For somebody to put him on their 53, that would be a pretty large leap of faith. So maybe there's a way to cut him. Maybe he comes back to them when he's healthy. He goes onto the practice squad, and then he works his way up from there. I think that's one of the possibilities.
So we'll go for now: Ramsey, Porter, Slay, Echols, Pierre, 5 cornerbacks sticking to the roster.
Okay. Yep.
All right. Let's move to safety here. Obvious guys, of course, Deshaun Elliott, Juan Thornhill, who I would say has impressed me. I did not have a lot of high expectations for Thornhill coming in. I thought he'd be okay, maybe. He's been, I think, even more than solid, so he's been pretty good there. I also checked Chuck Clark has looked good, so there's your 3 safeties that are obvious there. Now, between the last 3 here, I imagine you keep 4 safeties in this equation. Miles Killebrew, Quindell Johnson, Sebastian Castro. I know a lot of people loved Sebastian Castro because he looked good at Iowa, and he had a couple big hits here and there, but Miles Killebrew is your special teams ace. He is definitely sticking around, in my opinion, and I don't think that they're keeping more than 4 safeties on this roster as it stands.
Yeah, listen, Killebrew is the special teams captain. He's he's on the roster. And I think Castro, again, who's going to pick up an undrafted free agent? No one drafted him a couple of months ago. I think you can cut him, get him onto the practice squad, and he's certainly a guy that you can develop because, listen, Killebrew is what, 32, 33 years old? He's not going to be around forever, so you're going to have to continue to get those special teamers and those backup safeties involved here, and I think Castro is a good one that you might want to develop.
So there's that. We got 4 safeties, special teamers. Chris Boswell, obviously keeping the first team All-Pro kicker. Christian Kuntz looks like he'll be healthy enough to come back, so he'll be on the list. But now there's that punter battle that we've been eyeing on: Cameron Johnston versus Corliss Waitman. I thought this was Cameron Johnston's position to lose at the start of camp, but I will say Corliss Waitman has made this a tougher competition. I still say Cameron Johnston wins this one, Ray, but has Corliss Waitman changed your mind at all?
I mean, he's done very well. Maybe there's a scenario where the Steelers can flip one of those guys for a draft pick. If there's some needy team out there that needs a punter going into the season. I haven't heard of any major injuries or anything like that, but that's happened before. If not, I'm with you. They're paying Cam Johnston more money than Waitman. They brought him in here on a nice contract. Through no fault of his own. He was injured in the game last season. Waitman came in, took full advantage of the opportunity. He's continued to do that, but I think this is Cam Johnston getting the nod over Waitman.
So there you have it. There's our 3 special teamers. Now, Ray, this is a 53-man roster. We actually have 52 guys right now with the Kearney alignment. So let's go. We're going to go position by position and see where we want to add. 3 special teamers, not adding any more there. 4 safeties. I think we agreed that's not a position that they'll probably add an extra guy at. 5 cornerbacks. Is that a position where is that how Beanie Bishop gets on the roster?
Yeah, maybe a guy like Beanie, or maybe you do just keep Trice, right? Maybe that's an avenue for Trice to get on. Maybe he just works his way back from his injury and doesn't play early in the season. Because we know they like Cory Trice. That's not the issue. It's just that he hasn't been available and hasn't been able to play in many games.
So I think just doing a quick scale across the positions, right? You could either keep a 6 wide receiver, so like a Lance McCutcheon, a Robert Woods. You could either keep that or an extra offensive lineman, maybe a Dylan Cook or a Calvin Anderson for like an extra tackle, so that you have that there. Another defensive tackle if you really want to. You're down to kind of, or I guess DeMarvin Leal is not a tackle; he's more of an outside linebacker. We need to update that on this app. But I wouldn't say defensive lineman. I think we've kept enough defensive linemen. Maybe Carson Bruener, like you've talked about. Maybe Echo Leota there. So I think that 53rd spot that we're looking at here either comes down to a 6th wide receiver, a 5th inside linebacker, or a 6th inside linebacker, or a 5th outside linebacker, or a 6th cornerback here. What do you think is the best value of using that last roster spot?
Well, Danny Smith is going to have his choice there. So if he thinks Carson Bruener is that guy, he would be that. He would be the pick. But if it's another defensive back, if it's another receiver, maybe a guy like Hurlman who's been on special teams both as a returner and as a gunner, he would be a possibility as well. I still think Hurlman's probably a guy who's going to the practice squad. But listen, maybe this is a way for Trice or Bruener. I don't know that they've ever kept 6 inside linebackers, but again, Danny Smith is going to have his choice of like 51, 52, and 53, and maybe this is a way for Bruener to get on this football team.
I'm going to lean towards Cory Trice on this one just because of how important the cornerback position is to this team with the way that they're going to play this year. I think that Trice, the way we talked to him on Saturday, he seemed very excited to come back to the roster soon in that there. And so if you're able to get Cory Trice back, one, you don't need him right away because you're trusting that Ramsey, Porter, Slay, and Echols can kind of hold it down for a bit. But if he's able to come back and by like week 2, week 3 even, and one of those corners goes down, he is a guy you're excited to play out there, that you've been waiting to play out there. So I'd keep him along just for that, just as sort of another buffer for James Pierre to be your true 6th cornerback and more of your special teamer there. So with that being said, there is your 53-man roster. We have the Steelers keeping 3 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 5 wide receivers, 4 tight ends. Let me do some quick math on the offensive line. I think we said 8 offensive linemen, and we said 7 defensive tackles. We said 5 inside linebackers, 4 outside linebackers, 6 cornerbacks, 4 safeties, and 3 special teamers. That's the list there. We'll see what actually happens tomorrow. But before tomorrow, we will be at the Steelers facility. Ray, myself, and Brian will be there covering what happens at the Steelers Monday practice, the day before the 53-man roster cutdown. Get all of your information on the Steelers from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com. Check out this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this channel to get all the daily content that comes out from all of our writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Catch us after practice later today, where we'll be breaking down what we saw at Steelers practice on the South Side. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all the sports coverage from the Post-Gazette that we have to offer, visit post-gazette.com.